back with another edition of Turf Talk. Big races this weekend, but Vance, we actually had some news break this week too.
Yes, we did. Yesterday, the National Thoroughbred Racing Association and the other Eclipse Award voting entities decided to finally distinguish the older male and older female categories. They are now going to be restricted only to dirt-based horses. Well, what do you think of that change?
Yeah, well, I mean, I voted that way anyway, so for me it made sense. You know, one of the things I like about the Eclipse Awards voting process is that it actually is so open to interpretation pretty much on a voter level. But this, I just feel like they were getting it wrong every year. I mean, Acclamation, who I did vote for, but Wise Dan and Main Sequence as older males just didn't cut it for me. I mean, to me, if you're going to have a distinction of a turf award, then why not have a main track award? And Horse of the Year is the one where everyone is eligible. So for me, this makes sense. And yeah, there's been some lean years, admittedly. But Game On Dude comes to mind. 3-4 Grade 1 wins a year and not getting a sniff.
I agree. I've been voting the same way you have, basically sticking to main track only horses. I am a traditionalist. I've always known that the older male award, for all its original intent, was to celebrate the successes of main track horses. And it's unfortunate, in my opinion, that this change was absolutely necessary, dragging Eclipse Award voters back into the 20th century, so to speak.
Right.
And I also feel sorry for horses like Fort Larned, Mucho Macho Man, and last year Palace Malice, who unfortunately will never be have a chance to be recognized
absolutely.
for their achievements.
Yeah, I mentioned Game On Dude, but really, I mean, other Breeders' Cup Classic. And you know, to me, these awards are for the owners and breeders, and if that's what they want, then, you know, they literally pay the freight in this case. I mean, the NTRA and the other two blocks you mentioned are who vote, but, you know, that people don't get dressed in a black tie because, you know, because of what you and I think. I mean, they want to reap some benefit from the money they spend in the game, and they should. And horses like that who go on to stud should get the opportunity, if they're the best in their class, to have that marketability. One thing in the older male rank, to have a segue here, handicap races. We could say what we want about that. Maybe we'll discuss it with the big cap. But weight's always a topic of discussion, whether it's handicapping, or the way races are drawn up. And that sort of came up with the Risen Star Stakes at Fairgrounds this weekend. Some light weights in there because of allowance conditions. I agreed with the Twitter account that started the discussion. To me, we're trying to qualify for the Derby. Not saying they have to carry 126 the whole year, but I think they should be on equal weights if they're going to get a chance at the points.
I agree. Since handicaps are kind of going the way of the dodo, which I find unfortunate, I actually do like the tradition of handicaps. But if we're going to replace it, let's not replace it with allowance stakes conditions, which are basically handicaps in themselves, and they're arbitrary and capricious weight assignments to these allowance conditions, and they're actually turned out to be worse than handicaps.
Absolutely.
I wrote a op-ed about this in Bristnet a couple of years ago, and I mentioned that when Havre de Grace and Blind Luck ran in the Azeri Stakes at Oakland a few years ago, because of the allowance conditions, they were both carrying 115 pounds, and horses that were vastly inferior to them on all levels were carrying 119, 120 pounds, just because they had run already that year and earned money. So we just need to get rid of the allowance stakes, and if we could just go to scale weights, I'd be fine with that.
Right, and racing secretaries know that. They draw that up, and Jerry Hollendorfer and Larry Jones look at the Azeri and say, oh, look what I can get in at. And then you see, you know, horses, you know, shipping into fairgrounds, they may have won the springboard at Remington, and they're all of a sudden carrying more weight than, you know, Todd Pletcher's hot shot allowance that everyone knows is, you know, at least on paper, looks the better animal. Why not have them at equal weight? So we're in agreement. Not too terribly exciting from an argumentative standpoint this week.
But it's good to get these points across just so we can possibly influence the influence makers.
Absolutely, yeah. And it'll come up again, and with the big cap, and you can make your case for the handicaps have a place among the older ranks, and the Met Mile, of course, right there is one of the more famous handicaps in American racing. But next week we'll have the Derby Future Wager. Maybe we'll have something to discuss on that, or at least look back at the big racing this week. So look forward to having you with us on Turf Talk.